Happy to be here tonight with you, with all of you. You probably have the text. Okay, great. This is a little unusual to hear myself so loud, but I'll get used to it. Okay, so I would like to start this session with, of course, some prayer basically. But before that, to set the motivation. And I spent probably today a little bit more time on it than I'll do in the next few days, because it is the fast day. And I'm going to lead you through it like an analytical meditation. So please allow me to say a few words about analytical meditation. You probably already know this, but I just want to emphasize this once again. Because sometimes in the West, we misunderstand analytical meditation. First of all, we believe, and I'm saying in the West because Singapore is a Western country, is a modern Western country, really. So, in the West, we think of meditation mainly as stabilizing meditation, not so much analytical meditation, so one-pointed focus. And what we forget when it comes to analytical meditation is the emotional aspect. There's an emotional aspect that is really important. So, of course, there's analysis, there is investigation, but there should be an emotional response. Now, we have, of course, the difficulty, how would you define an emotion? So here I look at modern psychology, and they talk about emotions, because it's exactly the same as in Buddhism. So some psychologists say there are three aspects. There's the subjective experience. Okay, that makes sense. Everyone has a different emotional experience when it comes to a pleasant experience, an unpleasant experience, anger or love. I mean, very difficult to say it's the same feeling. Secondly, so that's the first component of an emotion. The second component is a physiological reaction. As part of our peripheral nervous system, which is basically all involuntary kind of reactions in our body. Raised heart rate, raised breath, like the breathing rate is enhanced or is lowered. So there's an involuntary response in our body that we have no control over. So when there's anger, it's an uncomfortable feeling in the body. When it's love, it's calm. It has a calming effect on our body. So that is the physiological response, an immediate response when there's an emotion. Fear, of course, we all know. And then there is the expressive, the kind of active response. So when we're angry, we may use harsh words. When there's love, we smile at the person. We move closer towards them, possibly benefit, help them. So in that way, these three responses, or these three components, are the same in Buddhism. The second one, when it comes to negative emotions, right away our peace of mind is disturbed. We've all heard this. So if it's anger, if it's attachment, it can no longer be peaceful. Our heart rate goes up, our breathing goes up. And in the case of positive emotions, as I said before, we become calmer. And of course then our actions are controlled by our emotions. That's why it's so important. Emotions are so important. It's our emotions that govern our actions. They're responsible for whether we're nice to someone or not. If we love this person, we're nice to them. If we want them to be happy, we act accordingly. If we don't like them, well, we may say nice words, but it's really an expression of passive aggression, right? Okay. So having said all this, Buddhism is a lot, if not mainly, about dealing with the emotions that harm ourselves and others, and dealing with positive, like generating, developing, working towards developing emotions that benefit us. A very important aspect. So emotions such as love, compassion, loving kindness, and so forth. And what do we do in an analytical meditation? We try to trigger these emotions. Take, for instance, a meditation on the Lam room. You're all familiar with the Lam room. And here is really just common sense. The different emotions, for each topic, different emotions are generated. So take reliance on a spiritual master, like a guru, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for instance. So we analyze His Holiness's good qualities, his kindness towards us, his constant actions towards the benefit of all sentient beings. So first we analyze it, right? But it's not like we analyze it, okay, we're done, let's go. No, you want a particular emotional state, faith, a deep sense of gratitude, a deep sense of devotion. So in the text it says you should have your hair stand on end, and you should have tears come into your eyes, right? So this will move us to then put into practice what, for instance, His Holiness says. Then you have the precious human rebirth. What is the emotional response? Meditating on the fact we have this precious body, this precious situation that we find ourselves in. Gratitude. Oh, I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful to have all these opportunities. And then an optimistic state of mind, I guess a state of joy. I have so many opportunities in terms of being healthy, having certain freedoms, having some interest in developing my mind in whichever way I do that. So the sense, no matter what happens, everything can go wrong. No one can take this from me. I'm so fortunate. So to be able to deal with life's challenges, because there's this underlying emotional sense of gratitude and joy. And then there's death. Oh, it could hit me any time. It could be over any time. Anytime it could be over. I should not waste time. I should be prepared. Right? That kind of emotional response. Does that make sense? That is really, really important. So it's not just a cerebral kind of activity, just, intellectually, oh yeah, my 8 freedoms, my 10 opportunities, and so forth. No, we should really allow this to go deeper. Then the meditation affects us. We internalize the meditation basically, and it affects us on a deeper level, and it affects our actions. So this is extremely important, and we can all do it. Now what I would like to start with is a motivation, to set our motivation to generate the mind of enlightenment. What I'll do is, I'll guide you through 3 steps before you reach bodhicitta. What I want to do, what's the purpose of these 3 steps? But the first step, in English is usually called affectionate love. I want to remind you how close we really are to sentient beings. How it doesn't make sense to have that sense of distance. First of all, because in many past lives, they've all been really close to us. They've been our children. Everyone has been our child, our parent, our best friend, our favorite uncle or aunt, right? So really, really close to us. So to kind of rekindle that feeling of closeness. And even right now, they're all like us. They all want the same in life. Just want to be happy. Don't want to suffer. I can know that for certain. Even though they speak a totally different language, they look totally different from myself, have different likes and dislikes, I can say about every person. They want to live a happy life. They want to be free from suffering. They want to be satisfied. I know that for certain. And all have this precious mind that holds the potential to become fully enlightened. However messy their lives may be, however strong their hatred may be, or whatever other faults that they have, well, deep inside, their mind, in terms of its actual nature, is not different from the mind of a Buddha. Think about that. Isn't that amazing? 8 billion people on this planet, and there's no reason for us to feel distant towards them. It's like meeting someone we've once been so close to, number one. And secondly, they're just like us. When it's most important, that which really governs all our action is our wish to be happy, to be free from that. That's like the underlying. Whether I like rice or noodles, whether I like tea or coffee, whether I speak German or Chinese, whatever, underneath it, it's the same that drives us. So think about this. Why do we feel distant? We have something so profound in common. And they have, despite all faults and limitations, have this precious mind, Buddha nature, the potential to become a Buddha. Have everything there. Don't need anything from the outside. It's all already there. Just needs to be brought to the surface. Okay, so that's the first step. This feeling, so based on that, if we analyze briefly, think about it briefly, analyze it, right? Give it our best, and come to the emotional response of closeness, acceptance, and concern, right? And of course, we fake it until we make it. I mean, just fake away a little bit, that's okay. Just allow yourself to just try to get in touch with that feeling, because it's not a feeling that is strange to us. You have it towards certain people anyway. So try to get that feeling. Fake it, doesn't matter. Even if you're, whatever, a ballet dancer, you fake it in the beginning until you make it. So it's all part of this. You just go through the motions until you can do it. And then I'll ask you to remember all the incredible suffering that people have, that sentient beings have. Right? Just the fact that they're caught in ignorance, caught in a state of mind, they just don't know how phenomena really exist. And that leads to all sorts of harmful emotional states that lead to actions that eventually bring them great suffering. How terrible. That lack of freedom. Maybe political freedom. Maybe freedom in terms of what job but no mental freedom. Causing them to experience loneliness and grief and desperation and depression. How terrible. And on top of that, feeling sick and so forth. I mean, really to think about it, how much suffering there is. That is great. That is great compassion. That is the preparation for great compassion. So I'll remind you of this and ask you to generate the wish for all sentient beings to be free from that. May they be free from all these sufferings and that which causes it. All their negative states of mind, all their afflictive emotions, their mental afflictions. May they be free from it. And may I help them. May I help them to overcome these as part of great compassion. May I be able to contribute to their release from problems and their causes. And then I ask you to allow this to get stronger, that mind. It's not just a wish, it becomes a determination. I'm so fortunate. I know about the Dharma, I have interest in the Dharma, I can practice it. So I need to do this. I need to do my very best. I need to dedicate this life, take personal responsibility, and go away fake it. Right? Don't hesitate. Just get into the mode, because your mind, your brain doesn't know you're faking it. You're really getting into that, right? Yeah, so really feel that. And in that way you generate the altruistic attitude. I do this by all means. And then to remember, well, I can only do it effectively if I actualize my fullest potential. I become a Buddha myself. Then I can teach others according to their needs, their interests, their predisposition, and so forth. I can tell them exactly what they need to do in order to then become a Buddha. I can't take them there, unfortunately. It'd be nice if I could. Can't do that. But I can be the perfect guide. And so based on that, I generate the aspiration. Motivated by all this care and compassion that I previously accumulated, that I previously generated, I then generate the mind of enlightenment. May I become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay? That's what I want you to do, and to really feel it. I want that emotional element to be there. Once we have that, we can do the prayer. But let's not forget, we need help. We won't be able to do this on our own. So, to become enlightened, we can all do it. Why not? I mean, what is better in life than that? Even if you win the lottery, I mean, what would you rather? If you have like an enlightenment pill versus winning the lottery, who takes the enlightenment pill? Right? So, therefore, we all, basically, if we understand what that means, we wish to attain that state. But we need help. We need the Buddha. We need the teachings, the medicine. And we need the Sangha. Which is why I actually start the meditation by asking you to visualize the Buddha right in front of you. In whichever form. Visualize the enlightened... Oh, yeah, you can actually see the Buddha. I can see your eyes going up. Yeah, exactly. So he's right there. He's actually right there. I mean, the omniscient mind is everywhere. And is actually in front of us. So, not in the form of a painting, but actually the Buddha is everywhere. And think, if you have a close connection to a Lama, like as long as it's the Dalai Lama, no difference. There's no difference. Right? So think of the Buddha in front of you, this guide, this expression of all enlightened qualities, this embodiment, just right there in front of you. And then I'll ask you to visualize you surrounded by all sentient beings. All sentient beings are around you. Right? Just think they're all around you, waiting for us. And those you have a hard time with, right in the front. Just to remind us, those that we may not like or they don't like us, right in front of us. Right in our face. Okay. And then I'll take you through these different steps, as I just explained. Right? And in that way we generate a motivation that psychologically is just really effective. It's not about, oh, all the Buddhas are pleased and, so great, be pleased. No, it's more about psychologically. I mean, the Buddhas will be pleased because it helps our mind. It makes our mind most conducive. It's just psychologically. Buddhism is all about psychology. So it makes our mind most receptive, more receptive than if we didn't have this motivation. So in this way, we are best prepared. It's like you want to eat a big meal. You're not going to have a big meal 5 minutes earlier. You want to be, hungry. So you can actually enjoy this meal fully. So having bodhicitta is a bit like starving yourself. It's maybe not the best kind of analogy, but starving yourself before a really delicious meal that you can then fully enjoy. Okay, great. So let's do this together. And then we recite the prayer in Tibetan. I believe you all know the prayer and it's okay to do it in Tibetan, right? Great. All right. But just before we start, just take a moment to just be mindful of your breath. Be mindful of breathing. Let go all worries, all destructive thoughts. Just be here in the moment. So now in the space in front of you, visualize your Lama or your Lamas appearing in the form of bodhicitta. As an embodiment of all the enlightened qualities. That we ourselves can attain. Guiding us through his words and his example. And then think that you're also surrounded by every sentient being. So the Buddha in the front to take refuge. And all sentient beings who are our focus for bodhicitta. With those who we may resent, or who may resent us, we usually avoid right in the front. And then remember that all of these sentient beings were at some point extremely close to us. Sacrificed their life and their happiness for our well-being. They were our parents, our children, and our closest friends. Countless times in the past. You just don't remember. And even now, they're just like us. On a deeper level, just want to be happy, satisfied, and free from unwanted experiences. And their mind is free from different afflictions, the different negative states of mind. They're just not in the nature of the mind. They're temporary. They can be removed. So that on the deepest level, their mind is as pure as the mind of the Buddha. So based on that, generate that feeling of closeness, of acceptance, and deep care and concern for all these beings. Think that they're part of you. But right now, the situation is so miserable. Controlled by their misconception of reality, attachment, aversion, jealousy, and so many other afflictions. Wanting to be happy, but constantly experience pain, fear, disappointment, loneliness, and so forth. Generate the deep aspiration. May each and every one of them be free from sufferings, and their causes. And may I be able to help them overcome all these unwanted experiences along with their causes. Really feel that affectionate and courageous mind of great compassion. And then allow this mind, this aspiration, to grow even stronger. Your inner strength multiplies. There comes the altruistic attitude that is determined to do whatever we can, no matter the time and effort, to dedicate our life towards benefiting sentient beings, every sentient being. Since right now we're limited in what we can do, and since we all have the potential, become just like the Buddha. Let's generate bodhicitta, the aspiration to become fully enlightened, to actualize our fullest potential for the benefit of every single sentient being. Which is also why we study about the true truth. So let's think, may our study, reflection and meditation on the true truth become a cause for me to become fully enlightened for the welfare of every single sentient being. So without letting go of your motivation, let's recite the prayer 3 times. Sangye Chuda Sogi Chonamla Chanju Pradu Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonangi Jola Penche Sangye Jokashu Sangye Chuda Sogi Chonamla Chanju Pradu Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonangi Jola Penche Sangye Chopasho Sangye Chuna Choki Chonamba Chanchu Pradu Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonangi
Droga Benche Sangye Droga Shu.
Alright, thank you. So that was a little longer. As I said, the first time is most important. Okay, now we'll start right away with the text. Okay. Well, first of all, you're still seated. You want to sit in the front? I want to ask you for one thing I would like you to do throughout the class. I want you to be extremely skeptical. Very skeptical, to question everything. Very important. Now, this is how we were trained, for instance, which is the basis for debate. To always question and have doubts by applying logic, but also your own personal experience. Does this fit my own experience? Very important. Bring in your own daily life. Does this make sense or not? And that critical kind of thinking is the best way, that kind of questioning is the best way to analyze, of course. Now, I don't know whether I'm asking too much of you for the next thing. I'm wondering whether it's realistic to ask each one of you to meditate on what we're doing here at home. To take some time out of your busy schedule, maybe half an hour. And so whatever we go through, I'm aware, of course, not everyone can come every day, but whatever you can do, at home, whatever you've learned, make a time and meditate on it. I'll go through it in a moment. So just whatever we've learned, to analyze it the way I described it earlier, to reflect on it, go through it, analyze it, and see, is there an emotional response? Does it affect you on an emotional level? Try to get that emotion. I mean, you can even think just logically, what could that emotion be? What would I want to? Just be awed or be amazed. For instance, if I were to ask you to meditate on the fact that all our problems come from a misconception. It feels like it's my boss's fault and my neighbor's fault and my partner's fault that I have a problem. That's how it feels, right? But actually, there's an underlying cause that only I can change. I can't change my boss, I can't change my partner, I can't change other people, but I can change that root misconception. How much freedom does it give me? All these changes that I would like to make, I actually can. If I understand what's the underlying cause, which of course, and we'll talk about it, is this root misconception of reality. It gives us so much freedom. Because that's the one thing we can change. And if we change that, everything changes. Think about it. So as an example, so to reflect on what we're going to do today, just these few pages, and then take it home. If you can do it in your meditation space, great. But I don't have a problem with you doing it on the toilet or in a traffic jam, right? If you don't have the time, I mean, you probably have time. Leave aside if you read in the bathroom, or some people may do that. So leave the book aside, just meditate, or in a traffic jam, or in a bus, or when you brush your teeth. Just for these few days. Because if we just talk about it and you listen to me, it'll probably go in here and then soon go out there. It's just natural, right? But if you take the time, make a time. Like I said, I'm not asking for more than half an hour daily. Maybe you can do half an hour in the morning and evening, that's asking a little more. But, see how much time you have. Maybe less TV, maybe less surfing the internet, right? I mean, we spend a lot of time doing that. So it's just 10 days, 12 days, not a big deal. Or 9 days, actually. So if we could try that together, you will see it's so much more effective. It makes such a big difference. Actually, I asked Wayne, I send them a message. I do that when I teach in Germany, for instance. People don't necessarily do it, but I still say you're required to read the text at least once. And Wayne very kindly replied, I can ask them to read it once before. So, very good. I mean, if you can do that, I mean, to require is a little harsh, actually. In Germany, people don't do it anyway, but I say it, right? So I always require them, and then in the end, they, feel a little bit more motivated to at least read it once or half of it. So to read it once is helpful, just to have read it once. That's how we prepare usually. With a really relaxed mind, just read it once. If you're enthusiastic, take a cup of tea in between and read it a second time. But see, anyway, whatever you can do. Okay. I mainly like to do it before class, a few pages at least. Okay. And then at home, to do your homework. That's your only homework. And to see also at work, because on the meditation cushion, you take then this idea, okay, so whatever we're going to go through today, and I try to address it, you see at work, take it to work. Is this true or not? Test it. Your own life becomes your petri dish. This is the science, Buddhist science, on the mind, and you become a scientist now. And you're reflecting on it back home, as I said, in your meditative space, however long you can. Meditate on what we go through, and then take it into your daily life and see, is it true or not? These are the best questions you come to ask. If you have any questions, they are practical questions. They are questions from your daily life. Is that asked too much? Can you try it? Let's try. It's like an experiment, right? Great. Which basically takes me to, this topic here. It is not easy. It's a difficult topic. And people think of it as a very advanced topic. But interestingly, you start this actually when you do the formal Buddhist study in the monastic institutions. You study this pretty much at the beginning of Parchin. So you have some preparatory topics, of course. But then once you've gone through them and you study Parchin, you study the introduction of Maitreya's Ornament to Clear Realizations. Then you study bodhicitta. And pretty soon after that, you have the true truth. So later on, there's a more advanced version of the study of the true truth. That comes when you study Madhyamaka. But you already are introduced. So it is extremely profound and not easy. But it's helpful to be introduced to it even in the beginning. So depending on your level of knowledge of the Dharma, whether you're a beginner or an advanced student, I believe it's beneficial. Okay, great. So, and of course, what we need to understand is that Buddhism is mainly a science of the mind. It's all about the mind. And every state of mind that we're going through as part of our Buddhist study is psychologically beneficial for us. So people sometimes ask me, well, what about devotion? Like, that's very religious. That has nothing to do with science. Oh, but psychologically, it's one of the most beneficial states of mind. It triggers something in our mind to go from the ordinary to allow ourselves to be inspired. So what we associate with religious practice, which is this joy, seeing the Buddha, joy, faith, devotion, we all know this feeling, right? It triggers something deep within us. It inspires us. It gives us this inner joy. It helps us to go beyond the just ordinary. So psychologically, extremely beneficial. So Buddhism, in every aspect of Buddhism, is psychologically, or is all the methods, all the different techniques that you're doing because they're beneficial for the mind. Help you to go deeper than the ordinary that we experience on a daily basis, the ordinary mind that's active on a daily basis. So keeping this in mind, let's look at the text. All right. So what does it tell us? That the root cause, and this is just a summary of what I studied. I put together this material from different sources, just to give you an overview. Right? So I reformulated it, but I didn't make anything up. It's exactly what the Buddha taught. So the root cause of all our problems and difficulties is our misconception of reality. It's not our neighbor. It's not our colleague. It's not our boss. It's not the annoying guy in the train or whatever. Or the one in the traffic jam who just, doesn't keep moving. That's not the root cause. That's important to think. However much we may blame our parents or whoever, really the main cause is that misconception. All our problems come from a basic misunderstanding or misapprehension of reality. Whatever suffering we experience, whatever unwanted experience, may be powerful grief and pain, or just be discomfort. Any type of unwanted experience can be traced back to the misconception, which does what? It adds something. It ascribes to phenomena a type of existence that they cannot possibly possess. Now, what happens with our mind? We perceive things, but every time we perceive something, the mind adds something. The mind adds something to the way we perceive these things. Usually when we say we have a wrong view, we have a misconception. I mean, we have misconception, a lot of them, right? We believe this person likes us, but they don't. Or the other way around. Or we believe, if we eat a lot of this food, we're going to get healthier. In the end, actually, it may just raise our blood pressure or whatever. Okay, so we have a lot of wrong views. But we also have a lot of correct views. Of course, we get things right. But in general, all wrong views are of two types. Either you deny the existence of something that does exist. Right? So deny the existence of something. So for instance, if I were to think, my actions don't have consequences. I can be a real jerk. And as long as no one notices, I get away with it. I will never experience the consequences of my actions, right? Sometimes we feel that if I can rob a bank, if I'm really good at it and no one, recognizes me, I can get away with it and just be rich, right? But that is an example of denying interdependence. Everything being connected. And what I give out comes eventually back. Karma. Just another way of saying karma. What is karma? Since everything is interconnected, we are all connected, even though it may not feel that way. So if I give something out, eventually it comes back to me. What goes around, comes around. This is true when it comes to the environment. Put poison in the wrong place. Eventually, it'll come back in some form or another. Think of the environment. What is the butterfly in one area leads to a storm in another and so forth. I mean, these ideas are based on the law of cause and effect. And they operate in every area of our life. And they also operate on the level of our volitional action, intentional action, affecting our experiences in the future. Right? Intentional actions causing experiences in the minds of other people, which eventually come back to experiences in my own mind. That's karma. That's it. It's not that complicated. And in fact, if we know about the law of cause and effect, how bizarre to think that on a level when you're like a gardener or on a scientific level, cause and effect work perfectly, but my actions don't have any consequences. That's ludicrous. Why should they make an exception in that case? Why should my actions go without any consequences, when everything else is based on cause and effect. Right? Okay, so denying that my actions have consequences is an example of a wrong view that denies the existence of something, that kind of mentally negates something, which is a wrong view. In actuality, there is cause and effect, or the law of karma, of karmic actions and their results, but I negate that wrongly. However, our misconception of reality does not deny something that does exist, but adds something. It adds, it ascribes, it gives phenomena. Mentally, we have a sense that phenomena exist in a more solid and concrete way in which they actually exist. As if they had some essence, something independently over there. Most difficult is when it comes to the I. There's a sense, there's this I here. It's not just called I, it's not just I have the thought I on the basis of a mind and body. No, it feels like there's really an I. I say I because there is this I. There is a solid I. Sometimes it sits here, sometimes here. Right? It keeps changing, right here or here. It's never in my elbow, but, it's around this area. And you know what? It's more important than your I. Sorry. It's just my happiness and my I more important than yours. That's how it feels, right? You are over there. Kind of like distant from me. Depending on how you treat me, maybe a little closer. And I may be concerned when it comes to your happiness, or not. But it all feels like there is something there. There is something there. That's the problem. That's what we end up saying, because it eludes me. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. I have no color, no shape, but my whole life revolves around it. To quote Geshe Kelsang, whose teachings are so amazing, it's like his teachings are such that I don't forget. Certain things he says, it's like they're carved into my heart. So one teaching he once gave on this was like, it's amazing how we're slaves to this perception of an I. If we had to do the same we do for this I, for instance, the thought, I need coffee, I need breakfast. It starts like that. There are always thoughts coming from the self-centeredness. I need coffee now. I need a warm bath now. I need these clothes now. I need. And then our mind and body starts racing, right? If we were to do that for someone else without payment, for another person, without payment, how long will we be able to do it? 2 weeks? Right? 2 weeks sounds pretty long. Just be the slave to someone. Want coffee, want this, want that. Now quick. I'm not happy. Do this, do that, right? 2 weeks without payment? Yeah, at the most, right? We do this our whole life. And the funny thing is, it doesn't even exist, that I. We do it for something that is not even there. We are a total slave to this self we ascribe. Our mind has kind of ascribed to mind and body, truly believes in that. That's really there. We never question it. We may go off into the world to try and find ourselves, just to meet Buddhism and see there's nothing to be found, right? No, but honestly, there's a whole movement to go and find yourself. I've never met anyone who found themselves. Have you? Come back from South Africa and say, I found the I. It looks like this, like that. No. So therefore, this is our main problem. Think about it. It's actually not that big. It's not like you have to involve anyone else. You can all manage it. That's the good news. It's not like you have to get everyone in Singapore to help you now to overcome the I. No, you don't. It's really good news. I can do it on my own. But it's hard. It's hard. It's really difficult because we are so used to self-centeredness. We're so used to it. It's such a strong habit that it's not just on a coarse level, it goes into the subtler levels of our mind. So let's not underestimate this strong mind. But all we can do is look for it and try to get to know it. So that's the first step. So whatever suffering we experience can be traced back to the misconception to ascribe to phenomena, the self, but also to you guys. I ascribe to you an inherent, like some solid existence over there. What's funny is, I don't see you as the center of the universe. I only see myself as the center of the universe. Why could that be? Right? I believe you exist inherently, just as I believe I exist inherently. There is some essence to you, to all of you. This is not so much this coarse intellectual mind, it's more on an emotional level. That's why also it's important to get in touch with these emotions. It feels like there's this solid, what's your name? Yeah?
Dalglish.
Pardon?
Dalglish.
Oh, how do you pronounce that?
Dalglish.
Jalkush. Okay, Jalkush. So, sorry, I'm saying it wrong. It feels like there's a true Jalkush over there. There's a true rain there. Right? What's your name? Fida. Fiza. So, true Fiza over there. It feels so solid. But I'm not going to see you the center of the universe. Sorry, no space. It's only one. Right? Why? Why is that? Isn't that interesting? Why do you perceive your own self as the center of the universe if everyone else is perceived? Something to think about. Why is that? Okay, so a little homework as well. Something to reflect on. Okay, but anyway, so therefore, what our mind does, whatever we perceive, it seems to be more solid, more concrete than it actually is. And we'll hear more about what that means. So there's a disparity, therefore. There's a gap between the way phenomena actually exist and the way we usually perceive them to exist. Right? Okay. To address this disparity, to address this gap between how things exist and how we perceive them, the Buddha taught the true truth. Conventional truth and ultimate truth. So in that way, this gap is addressed. It's a little unusual. I guess 2,600 years ago, people did talk about true truth. Also in other traditions, they did have that concept of conventional and ultimate truth. And so people were more familiar with it. I think if the Buddha came now, if now Buddha Shakyamuni were to come now, not sure he would use that same terminology. He would probably talk about quantum mechanics and atoms and so forth. But we've got no choice. We need to think like a Buddhist 2,600 years ago, or like a philosopher at that time. So Buddhism addresses the fundamental question of what is reality, or what reality is, and how we can understand it. That is the root of Buddhism, really. What is reality? How do things really exist? And that this is important, I think we can understand even on a daily basis. If you think about it, if a traffic light is, instead of being green, it is red, but you perceive it to be green, it's potentially very dangerous, right? Or if you think the floor is totally clear, but there are shards of glass on the floor, it's potentially very dangerous. Or if you believe everyone really likes you, but they don't, it's potentially good, right? Or you believe you're the best, worker or whatever, and you're just not. It's potentially dangerous. It makes sense that wrong views have the power to greatly harm us. Now, this is true, of course, here as well, because all our problems come from that. It makes sense, doesn't it? So Buddhism addresses this fundamental question of what is actually reality and how can we understand it. So it's not enough to know what reality is. It's also we need to have a technique to understand it, to come to an understanding of it. So ultimate truth is explained to present how phenomena actually exist. And conventional truth is explained to present the way in which we ordinarily perceive phenomena. Right? So we have already heard there is a gap between how we ordinarily perceive things and how they really exist. So in that way, we need to recognize, or Buddhism helps us to recognize that gap by way of explaining those two truths, conventional and ultimate. In fact, all phenomena are subsumed. All phenomena pertain to the true truth, which means whatever exists is necessarily one of the two. Whatever there is, you, I, our minds, our bodies, our daily life, our job, our cars, our houses, our families, all those are either a conventional truth or an ultimate truth. Whatever exists can be included in those two. And then just to show that this is not made up by me or by anyone else, well, it comes from the Buddha. I saw a translation of this book, The Sutra of the Meeting of Father and Son, in your library up there. It's actually from the LTWA. I saw a translation in there. It's a green book. You, the knower of the world, comprehend these two truths by yourself without having heard them from another. They are the conventional truth and the ultimate. There is by no means a third truth. It's complicated enough. Two is enough. I can manage two. A third one would be overwhelming. No, I'm kidding. But of course, we talk about also the Four Noble Truths, but that's different. We use the same word, but they refer to something different. So here, what this is saying, the knower of the world, you, here's the Buddha himself saying, the Buddha, you've understood these true truths. And without having heard them from another, doesn't mean that the Buddha, when he was a bodhisattva, when he was an ordinary person, didn't receive teachings on this. This is not what it means. But now as a Buddha, you have full knowledge of this. You don't need anyone else to constantly explain it to you, because you have actualized this. You have understood this. You have, without having to depend on anyone else, you fully understand this. As we can do this ourselves as well, but not right now. We can come to that knowledge ourselves. But the Buddha is an example of someone who's reached that knowledge. And those two are the conventional, the ultimate. And then, of course, the great Nagarjuna, the second Buddha, as he's sometimes called. In his text, which very much deals with what is reality, what is emptiness. In his fundamental wisdom, he says the Dharma teachings of the Buddhas are based on the two truths, the conventional truth of the world and the ultimate truth. Here, the world, like ordinary beings, how we ordinarily perceive things. That is explained when explaining the conventional truth. And of course, Chandakirti, the great Indian Pandita, the great Indian Nalanda master Chandakirti, he similarly said in his Entering the Middle Way, all entities bear two natures. All entities have two natures, as acquired by correct or false views of them. It is taught that suchness, or the ultimate truth, is the object of seeing correctly, whereas that of seeing falsely is a conventional truth. Again, from the point of view of how phenomena actually exist, the ultimate truth is introduced. From the point of view of how we ordinarily perceive things based on a wrong view, conventional truths are introduced. Yeah? For those who've studied the two truths, this may be a little confusing right now. It may be a little confusing, but we get to that. We'll get to that. This is only an introduction. And a good thing to do is, if you have questions, sometimes it's hard to even know what the question is, right? Where do I start? So the way I learned to deal with questions was first to find out what question I actually have. Out of my cloud of confusions, formulate a question here and there. So what is it that I don't understand? We also always had a text. So go through it. What is it that I don't understand? And sometimes it's really helpful to write them down and then try to answer them yourself. Find the answer yourself. That's a really good way to use your own internal wisdom, right? to be patient with yourself. Sometimes I just want this question answered, so we can't bear it to sit with this question. And sometimes it's just without the question being answered, that nothing makes sense. So we have to answer, we have to question, we have to ask this question, because nothing else that follows makes sense. So these are different cases. But sometimes it's real fun, actually, to think about it yourself, and your understanding gets that much better. To really, how can I come to this? All right, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Yeah? So we learn actually to do this. But again, you need to be the judge of it. What is better, to sit with it or to ask it right away? And of course, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Okay, so I believe we have 20 minutes left. I'll go a little bit further, and then you have already the chance to ask questions, and of course more in the future as well. So the root of all our suffering and all our unpleasant experiences is that we are deceived by the disparity between how phenomena appear and how they actually exist. In fact, what we perceive is the opposite of what is actually there. Okay, so in the sense that we perceive things to be so concretely and truly inherently over there, and that is the opposite of how they exist. We will discuss this, of course, further. It will be explained, but just for now. But that doesn't mean we don't perceive things. That would be ridiculous. We do perceive things. We add something to them, but we still know certain things. So our daily life, our daily reality is a mosaic of different phenomena, situations, and events. We know we have breakfast. We know we took a train. We know. No one is saying that we don't know that. There's a lot we know. Some of them may be mere fantasies. Yeah, okay. Sometimes we just think something is the case, but that's not the majority, and do not actually exist. So some of these are mere fantasies and do not exist, while the majority are existent, functioning things. Although these do exist, our mind automatically ascribes to them a mode of existence or characteristic that they cannot possibly have. So it's just a characteristic. We add a little bit more to them that they actually have. It's like a rainbow. You know, a rainbow exists. But when you perceive it to be really solid, you can touch it, it's tangible, you can cut a piece off and take it back home, right? That would be an example. So think of a rainbow. Rainbow exists, but if you perceive it to be, it appears to exist really solidly, doesn't it? But then if you ascribe the solidity to the object, think it's really solid, it's positioned in a particular place, I can go there, cut a piece out, and take it home. Well, that would be an example where you ascribe something to this rainbow, which it doesn't have. So this is, you see the similarity here? Phenomena exist, you exist, I exist. But our mind makes you and me and everything else more solid. Ascribes a characteristic, which we'll introduce here. Okay. Our habitual misconception of reality is so deep-rooted and entrenched that in order to overcome its most subtle manifestation, right? Think of subconscious. Unfortunately, it's even in the subconscious mind, right? We must delve deeply into a correct description of reality based on the true truth. Embrace it fully on an emotional level. Here it comes. Again, not just intellectually, but allow this to go deeper and affect you on a deeper level. And adopt it extensively in our daily lives. That's when changes come about. You don't have to become a monk or nun. You don't have to join, I don't know, some hermits in the mountains of Singapore. But somewhere else, right? No, you don't need to do this. You can exactly learn about this here. You have an incredibly qualified Geshe here, of course, Geshe Kelsang Wangmo. So he has all the knowledge, so can explain this to you, how they exist. Then come to understanding, reflect on what you've learned, bring it on an emotional level. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean to me? In what way does this change my life or affect my life? And bring it into your daily life. Like I said, you become like a scientist. Now, whatever you've discovered, whatever discovery you've made, you bring into your daily life and check it and see whether it actually can affect your way of life. Well, your thoughts, first of all, and then your way of life in a positive way. To understand the true truth, to understand the true truth, the conventional and the ultimate, it is essential to comprehend emptiness and dependent arising. The following explanation is given from the viewpoint of the highest philosophical tenet system, the Madhyamaka Prasangika school. So before we can actually delve into the true truth, emptiness comes first. I'm going to talk about emptiness. What is emptiness? Okay, great. Now, is there already something you can take with you? The meditation we did in the beginning. No harm in bringing that with you, right? And whatever else I've said, if there's something stuck, and you can take it with you, just reflect on it. Is it true that all my problems come from a misconception with the I? Remember the I? Do you feel you're the center of the universe? Of course. Of course. That's our problem. If it was just me who thought it was the center of the universe, the world wouldn't be such a messy place. But 8 billion people believe there. No, a few exceptions. A few exceptions. Minus is holiness, minus great beings, so of course, yeah. But majority feel that they're the center, and that's the problem. So reflect on that. How strong is it? Oh, this idea. We are slaves to our own self-centeredness. I need, I want, I don't want, I, do not, and so forth. Is that true or not? How much are we really a slave to that? How much freedom do we have? Really? Right? And can we ever be totally relaxed without worrying about I, me, and you? Before long, right? Before long, something could harm me, my possessions, my reputation, my success, my pleasure, my gain. Right? Before long, to just totally relax, sit on some beautiful park. It doesn't last long, does it? Possible. Yeah. Incredible. Very little freedom. When Buddhism talks about freedom, we're not talking about Singapore as an independent free country. No, we're talking about internal absence of freedom. Right? We can live in the most free country there is. The most important freedom comes from within. And that's what we're seeking. Anyway, we've got 15 minutes. Any questions? We pass around the microphone. Yeah. Any questions? Any doubts? Any comments? Anything? No?
It's done.
No, if there's no question, no problem. I just continue. All right. Yes, please go ahead.
Is there a difference
between subtle mind and I?
Is there a difference between
subtle mind and I?
Oh, the subtle mind and the I. Is your subtle mind your subtle mind? Is it your subtle mind? Is it my subtle mind or your subtle mind?
Of course, it's mine.
It's yours. So your I owns a subtle mind.
Yes.
Is there a difference?
So, okay.
Right? So to say the I owns the I of the I doesn't make sense, right? If I were to say the I of the I, it's like, what? We don't use the genitive in that way. But when you say the I and the subtle mind, we talk about your subtle mind, or from your perspective, my subtle mind, right? And so therefore there's definitely a difference. There's a difference between your subtle mind and you.
Yes.
Yes. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You sure you know the answer? But keep the question in the back of your mind, because you all, probably many of you, have heard of the subtle mind. And this is a very common question. Isn't the subtle mind the I? Isn't the subtle mind the I? Well, I've just said no, because the I owns the subtle mind, right? Or it's your subtle mind. So, but keep the question going, because I don't think it's fully answered yet. We don't need to go into it now, but keep it in the back of your mind and check whether it's fully answered at some point. Yeah, great. Good question. Do you have another question? Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's exactly my subtle mind is trying to ask.
Uh-huh.
So this I and subtle mind, it can be two different. I mean, at times we will think about ourselves.
Yes.
That could be I, but the subtle mind can telling you that don't do it. You know that it's going to be a mistake. I mean, just like if you go to the casino, you know that you're going to be wasting money, right?
Yes.
But it's because of circumstances, so you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the day, the subtle mind will blame you that why are you spending money or losing things that you know that is not reality.
Okay. Oh, so the way you describe your subtle mind, you're not describing the subtlest mind, right? Because the subtlest mind would not tell you, oh, don't go to the casino. It's too subtle. Okay, but I think I understand what you're saying. There are different levels of mind. There's the mind that just wants to enjoy this, just wants to go ahead and play. And there's this other mind that's kind of like affected by wisdom. Oh, you better don't do it. Get into trouble, etc. Yeah, so there are different types of mind. But the very subtle mind, when you talk about the very subtle mind, well, if you talk about the subtlest mind, for instance, that's said to be this purest mind, well, right now you are here, but your subtlest mind isn't there. Right? So there must be a difference, because you exist right now. Where's your subtlest mind? It's not active, because your coarser mind is active. It cannot be active right now. It's only active, for instance, at the moment of death. So anyway, there are different types of mind, even talking about the wisdom, the mind that is able to think. That is also not always, when you walk into the casino and start playing, that mind is not active. It's shut up by the other mind, like, no, I just want to do it now. So you see, there are different minds at different times, but the I is there at all times. So different minds are active, but they're not always there, whereas the I is always there. And again, in answer to your question, they must be different, because if they were the same, they would all have to exist at the same time. Does that make sense? To say it again, I see some question marks on your faces. I see some question marks. So again, we oftentimes hear about certain subtler levels of mind, and the question that often arises is that not my essence? Is that not the I? Right? Is that not really who I am? But in answer to that, I could say that these subtle minds are not always there. But I'm always there. So am I gone in that moment when my subtle mind is not there? So right now I just have a coarse mind, so I'm not actually here? No. Sometimes there's a subtle mind. Sometimes there's a coarse mind. Sometimes I just want to race to the casino no matter what. Another mind, my wisdom tells me, oh, don't do it, you lose. Right? Yeah, so, and none of those are the I. And still I would say the I is there. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Other questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
I have a question on this paragraph that says, it is taught that suchness is the object of seeing correctly, whereas that of seeing falsely is a conventional truth. So my question is, why is it seen falsely is a conventional truth? And if it is, why is it not called conventional force?
Why is it not called conventional force? Force, conventional force. Okay. Well, actually, we'll explain this. This will be explained further down. I mean, I can explain it, but then I wouldn't be able to give you a satisfactory answer versus like later on when you read through it, it will be explained what is exactly meant by this. So I'll say this much. It's a conventional force. Well, the thing is, whenever we perceive anything other than emptiness, so when we perceive emptiness, that's different. But at this point, when I perceive this table appears to my mind. So what appears is the table, of course, but it appears as if it existed from its own side, as if it like more solid than it actually is, as if my mind has nothing to do with it. It's just there, waiting to let me know I'm a table. Right? This is how it appears to me. So therefore I call this a conventional truth. Because every time I perceive this phenomenon, there's always this extra characteristic that my mind projects onto this. So it's actually not a truth. It's a conventional falsity. The word truth is here, and that's what needs to be explained. To my misperception, it's a truth. From the point of view of my misconception, this is truly, it exists, but actually it's not an actual truth. Only an ultimate truth is a truth. But this is complicated now. This is complicated right now. Okay, let me say again, when we talk about emptiness, we can understand emptiness. And when we do, when we perceive this emptiness directly, we're not fooled. We perceive it the way it exists. So it presents itself to our mind in such a way that there is no mistake. Once we know how phenomena really exist, our mind has the ability to know how phenomena really exist. And when it does, the object appears the way it exists. So it becomes a truth. It is a truth because we perceive it in the correct way. But unfortunately, everything else that is not an ultimate truth, whenever we perceive it, it's always perceived in a way with that mistaken aspect. So it's only a truth from the point of view of ignorance. It's not an actual truth. I know it's complicated. We don't think like that usually, right? But if you hear it again like later on, I'm pretty sure it'll become clear. Yeah. Okay. Great. Any other questions? If there aren't any, it doesn't matter. I can continue a little bit. I have a few more minutes, and we'll have another. Oh yes, please go ahead. Sure.
Just now, during your teaching, you say that the I doesn't exist. So,
not the way we perceive it.
yeah.
I should correct that. Yeah,
So
go ahead.
Conventionally, the I exists.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the I exist? And
Okay. So
how does it doesn't exist?
All right. That's a good question. That's a good way of asking. So he's understood that there is an I that does exist and an I that doesn't. We have to distinguish between the I that exists and the I that doesn't exist. It's a little confusing, especially because in Tibetan and in Sanskrit, and therefore also now in English, the word selflessness is used. It sounds as if there wasn't any self, because there's selflessness. In actuality, it means the self exists, but not the way we perceive it to exist. Now, what is the I that does exist? Well, to give you an example, 100 Singaporean dollars. On the basis of a piece of paper that was printed by the Singaporean Mint based on certain clauses and conditions. What is this piece of paper with an engraving, etc., is labeled 100 Singapore dollars, right? We basically ascribe this value to it. We conventionally call it 100, but to our mind, it seems like it's carrying that value within it, right? It's lying there. Ooh, 100. If it's a piece of paper, like someone writes $100 on it, we're like, piece of paper. We see this, it's almost like, pick me up before someone else does. Right? Doesn't it feel like it's kind of screaming at me? I hold this value. It's only labeled. And of course that it works, it functions as $100. I'm not going to carry that other piece of paper where I just wrote and carry to a store and have any hope of being able to buy something. But and the point, so the thing is, like, it's merely labeled to be 100 Singaporean dollars, but to our mind, there's something more. Think of, like, the President of the United States right now. Whether it's good news or bad news. Okay. But think, years ago, there was this person, just a guy, just a rich guy. And so we started, when he was elected the first time, what was it, 2016? We started labeling president. And at some point, he seemed to carry presidentness on his, as if it was like tattooed in his forehead, right? And then in 2000, so after this labeling, first we labeled president, and at some point it became like, well, I call him president because he has this essence of being a president, right? And then I had to reprogram myself he became the ex-president, right? Ex now, 2020, ex. But so now it's like, oh, the president, no, ex-president. I have to remind myself until at some point, it seems to be coming from his side. And now I have to again change. Again, president, right? And change again. So you see, our mind labels on the basis of having won the election, on the basis of his body and his mind, many different factors, we label something and then it seems to be from the side of the object. It seems to be something within him, a presidentness. So similar to the eye. This is similar to the eye. So in the case of the eye, well, my mind labels I. On the basis of, for instance, when I sit, my body is in a sitting position, so I label I on the basis of this body doing something. I sit. Or on the basis of my mind having certain thoughts. Let's say I meditate, I label I meditate. Or if I walk around, I label I walk. But it kind of feels to me, when I sit here or when I walk around, not only are my legs walking and my brain does whatever it needs to do to be able to walk, there's also an I that's being picked up and walked alongside with my body. Or when I say I meditate, yeah, there's the mind that's meditating on the basis of which I labeled I, but there seems to be another I that is now that is also meditating now, right? Or when you insult me, so when you say you suck or whatever, right? I mean, it happens. So someone insults me, you insult me, and you say something, so I feel hurt. Did you hurt my body? No, you didn't hit me with a stick. You hurt, what did you hurt, my mind? How can you hurt a mind? I mean, my mind is over here. It's formless. I could say you hurt my feeling because previously I was happy and now I'm unhappy. So you didn't hurt my happy feeling, you made my happy feeling disappear, to be more precise, right? So really all you did was you caused an unhappy feeling to arise. But it feels like you also hurt this I. Where's this hurt? Where's the I that has been hurt? Is it somewhere in the body? Is it somewhere in the mind? And what does this hurt look like? Does the eye bleed? Does the eye swagger? Is the eye... it's really impossible. So I feel so strongly that you hurt the eye. Actually, I just labeled eye. When you said something to me, you said it to this body with this mind. So I labeled the eye was hurt. But when I really search for this eye that has been hurt, I can't find it. I mean, with the body, all right. If you were to hit me with a stick, I say you hurt my body. But you really just hit a particular a certain part of my skin. So my body, as if it was like a separate entity. So this part, you hit my arm and my body. So you hit my body. But I really just label body on the basis of this part. I say you hit my body. But it feels like there's a separate body that on top of my arm hurting, the whole body hurts. It feels that way, doesn't it? And the same is true with the eye. You hit my body, so you hurt my eye. You hurt me. In what way? Okay, my body, I can get that. I'm no longer happy, so I'm unhappy now. But where's that eye that has been hurt? Other than the one I merely labeled on the basis of mind and body. Say I, because I label, I call this as per convention, this is I and this is you. But actually, it feels like there's only one I, and that's me. So don't say I to yourself, because you're you. Actually, you're not actually I. This is absurd. There's only one I, and that's me. From my perspective, it's I. From your perspective, it's stranger. It doesn't feel like that to my mind. How can you have a different perspective? How can you not see that I'm the center of the universe? How dare he says this to me? He says it to my neighbor? Thank you very much. I may be so pleased. You see what I'm saying? So am I saying the I doesn't exist? No, the I is labeled on the basis of mind and body, just as I label $100 on the piece of paper that has been given out by the government. Yes, these are $100, but not intrinsically found in there the way it appears. Donald Trump has been validly, he actually did win the election and all this. Yes, he did. But is there some presidentness within him? No, can't be found. It's just labeled. It's almost unbelievable how mind can make such a mess from that sense that there is a I whose happiness is more important than everyone else's. Right? It seems to be such a tiny mistake to kind of add a little bit more, to believe that there's something more than just being labeled. It seems tiny. And it is the cause of all problems in this world. It's the cause of every war, of every conflict, of every single suffering. That seemingly tiny mistake. But yeah, does it kind of make sense a little bit, what I said? And after 4 years, we call him X. Right? If we're still alive. No. No, I shouldn't say that. No. No, but after 4 years, you're going to say X, right? And you have to get used to it being X. Right? And after some time, it seems to be intrinsic in this person, being this X person. And there are many examples of that, of course. And we go through them. That's all part of this. It's over time, it's a problem, right? I shouldn't really do it. It's not a problem. Oh, good. So you're welcome to leave at any time if you're busy. It's not a problem at all. But yes, if in the meantime you have a question, you're welcome to ask further. Yes, right? Mm-hmm.
What in the example you just gave?
Yes.
The physical pain.
Yes.
Or the emotional pain.
Yes.
If one negates the I.
Yes.
is there still a valid basis for the pain? Like, is there still a basis of a physiological reaction, without the eye to experience the pain?
Well, I don't deny the I only deny an inherent, independent I. I only deny a type of I that cannot exist, right? So I don't deny a conventional I don't deny the labeled I on the basis of mind and body. That's not denied. So there is still an I that I can say, okay, because there's a physiological reaction, so I react on the basis of that physiological, whatever that is. So let's say my heart rate goes up. So I say, I breathe faster. When actually, really, what is breathing faster? My lungs are moving, whatever is part of the breathing process. In actuality, that's what breathing faster. But because I have already, I think of myself as being that which is labeled on the basis of mind and body, when my body does something, I can correctly say I do. But that's it. It's just that label I. So what I'm denying is just an I that exists beyond and above that labeled I. And that is the one that I doesn't exist, of course, that I want to protect all the time, that I'm attached to, that I think is more precious. All my negative states of mind hold on to, when it comes to the I, hold on to that exaggerated I that doesn't exist in that way. I never have attachment to the conventional I. I can never be angry with your conventional I. Impossible. Does that make sense? So therefore, all I'm denying is that extra characteristic I ascribe to the I, that it's not really labeled, but it's concretely there. In other words, that I label I because it's already there. It's actually the other way around. It's there because I label it, because I think of it as I, or I call it I. Therefore, I say it exists, of course, on a valid basis. But then it seems, to my mind, I only call it I because it already is one. Exactly reversed. It's not an I because I call it that, but I call it that because it already is. You see the difference? So President Trump is in and of this piece of paper is 100 Singapore. It's from its own side that. That's why I call it 100 Singapore dollar. Of course, if you were to ask me, if I operate with my coarse mind, and you were to ask me, is it 100 Singaporean dollar because we conventionally agreed with it? I would say, of course. It doesn't feel that way. And as I said, on an emotional level that is deeper, I act out of my emotional level. On a deeper level, I feel this I is not just labeled. I call it I because it's there, independent of labeling. There's really something there, something very concrete and something very important. Right? And because it's so important and so precious, I refer to it as I. That's how it feels. And all my actions are governed by it. I go as far as saying that. So there are very few altruistic, truly in my case, truly altruistic. They may be a split second inspired by His Holiness, by the Buddha. Right? Because I'm so used to believing in this extra I that I created, and then believe there's an extra reputation, an extra fame, an extra gain, an extra pleasure, something like a true pleasure, a true gain, which I all want for this I. The 8 worldly dharmas. I want gain for this I. I don't want loss for this I. I want pleasure for this I don't want suffering. I want a good reputation, fame, and I want to have fame, or I want to be praised, and I don't want criticism for it. And I want gain, I don't want loss. right? Does that make sense? Yes, okay, go ahead.
Krishna. So, does physiological reactions such as the increased heartbeat due to the grasping of I?
Good question. Would a Buddha get a physiological? I think so. Honestly,
Because of the grasping.
I think so. I think it's all. So it depends on why your heart rate goes up. Because love and compassion are just overpowering you. That's different, right? I mean, it could be. For instance, they say in Chandakirti's entering into the middle way, when they hear the word give, when a bodhisattva hears the word give, incredible joy arises in their mind. So if that's the case, there's probably a physiological reaction. Someone said give. Oh yeah, now I have the chance to give away everything. Possibly. Yeah, I could imagine like a bodhisattva, it's possible. In our case, it's more, oh my God, someone said give. I have to give now. I have to give 10 Singapore dollar. How many coffees could I buy from that, right? Does that make sense? So it depends on. But in general, so this kind of excitement, for us ordinary people, I would say, unless it's like total faith in the Lama, like this Lama, and they inspire me. You know what compassion is? Compassion, we often think of compassion like you put yourself into the other person's shoe and you see the suffering and you're going to really be sad because of the suffering of this person, right? That's not compassion. That's sadness. Compassion is you perceive the suffering of another being and this courage arises. I need to do something. I can do something. I have to do something. So this kind of courage can only come if your heart rate goes up, right? Like, whoa, I see suffering. Like a bodhisattva is probably like, suffering, great, I can do something. Oh, the Zoom just okay. So, okay, right? Oh, there's a suffering sentient being. Wonderful. I can, act now. Does that make sense? So, in that sense, I don't know about the heart rate. I mean, I don't know Buddhas and heart rates and so forth, right? I haven't really learned about that because they have like a different kind of body than we do. But I don't think it's necessary that as an ordinary person that every time your heart rate goes up, it has to be because of self-centeredness. We can have these moments of like just pure compassion for the other person. I believe that exists because it's in the nature of our mind to actually be compassionate. So the self is not involved. We see a person's, like I've seen this oftentimes. A person falls down and everyone is like, right? They kind of stumble and you can see people go, this is such a spontaneous reaction. If it was like falling on you, you may step to the side. Right? Because it's like, oh my God, I'm in danger. So you may want to avoid it. Possible, yeah? Oh, so they're falling towards you, fall to the side so you don't get injured. But if they're not in any way threatening you and your well-being or anyone, you or your children, etc., then there's this spontaneous. I believe this is because compassion is in the nature of our mind. Or in the nature of our mind means our mind has once all the messy bits, the misconception, the afflictions, they're gone, our mind can naturally experience compassion. So in answer to your question, therefore, I think it's possible. It's rare. But when people suddenly, jump on the railway road because someone has just fallen there. And they see this train coming, but their only thought is, I have to save that person. I think that would be an example where you don't think, where you actually are willing to sacrifice your life, but you don't even have the time to think that you sacrifice. You would have maybe changed your mind if you had the time to think. But in that moment, it's just action and reaction. I think in this moment, you may totally forget about yourself. You run into that burning building, and it's not like, oh, hope the cameras are all on me while I'm running. No, it's literally just, someone is in danger, I have to help them. I think we can have these moments, right? But we can't think about them long enough. I believe that. But in most situations, I would say our heart rate goes up because of self-centeredness. In most situations. Probably 99%. I was never in a situation where I run into a building. I've never done that. So, therefore, I think 99% I would agree with you. Yes.
Dear Vishma, just now you gave the example of the $100 bill that we perceive that it was from your own side and it's like waiting for us to pick it up before anyone sees it. And you said that's perceiving wrongly, right?
Yes.
Then when I heard that, but my mind said, but that will give me happiness. By seeing it like this, that will bring me the happiness that I want.
Right.
But because if I analyze it on paper, or it's just paper, it won't give me the happiness of picking up the $100.
Right.
So actually, I want to see it like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, you do. But are you sure 100% this $100 bill could not give rise to a lot of problems? You buy now something, you buy this used makeup, which turns out to be poisonous, and you get really, really sick, and now you need $2,000 to, right? I mean, it seems it gives us this happiness. It feels that way because having more money, I can get what I want. But in the end, we don't know. It feels that way, but we can't tell for sure. It could actually be, the cause for a lot of problems. There's a possibility. But you're right, of course. What you're saying, I totally identify with that. There's a sense that first of all, an inherent $100 that can satisfy this inherent I, with this inherent lasting happiness. Because it feels in that moment, now I'm going to really be happy because I found these $100. Of course, once they're gone, I realize, it wasn't that long after all. But it feels that way. So it's when I give you the $100 bill as an example, that is just taken out of context. I mean, it's like just one example. It's a lot more complicated than that. So much more happens. But the whole point is the $100 is just a good example because it's not like a tree that grows in nature. I mean, it's so obvious that at some point this piece of paper was nothing worth and then suddenly it is. And at some point again, when the Singaporean Mint decides to reprint, this happened in India, actually also in 2016 when Trump was I remember the day very clearly. I was late in the evening, I was listening to the BBC News, and they were announcing that from tomorrow onwards, 100 and 500 rupees bill had no value. And I had just withdrawn money to buy a statue. What am I going to do? This has no value any longer, right? And for the longest time, I would look at it and go, oh no, it's the old one, right? So anyway, to just give you a sense of this piece of paper, it's like with the eye, it really seems there's something. But with a piece of paper, how bizarre that we actually have this sense, whoa, it's calling me, pick me up. That's why I gave the example. But it's much more complicated. You're absolutely right. So, yes, it's a little bit more complicated. And I'm not saying now when you go home and there are $100 bills running around, you will no longer care. No, pick them up. Pick them up. I still want to encourage you, pick them up. Yeah. Great. Oh, you all have a good background, it seems. From your faces and from your questions. I don't see any, faces. I sometimes do in others. So, but yes, please go ahead. Can we pass the microphone on, please? Yeah. Is this switched on?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, Geshe, for this lesson and for the series. We're all very grateful that you're here. We really enjoyed this very much. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I did pick up $50 once in the rain.
Okay.
And just to share this anecdote with everybody here, it was raining very heavily and I was walking on this path, footpath, and there was a $50 bill. And I felt so bad about it because somebody must have dropped it. And this person is going to be so upset, you know. But at the same time, and in Singapore, you cannot take money that's not yours. It's considered as stealing. It's in the law, yeah.
Even from Buddhist point of view, actually.
Yeah.
To take what's not given.
And I said to myself, but this is terrible. This person who has lost it is going to be very upset. But at the same time, this person is going to get it back because nobody's going to just leave it there. And so I reflected on that. And I took this $50 bill and I sent it to TBC and asked Geshe Yonten to light a light for whoever lost it. Hopefully, this person would have had a practice in less attachment, one way or another. And that was how I dealt with it. Yeah,
that's a very nice way of dealing with it. Yeah.
So coming back to my question, really, it's very practical.
Yeah.
I'd like to do the homework.
Okay.
And I'd like to be able to, to do something with the teaching. Are you suggesting that we pick any one of the points that you raised tonight and just reflect on it and then come back perhaps to the next lesson with an awareness that we have actually reflected on it? If I can say to myself, oh, that's a mistaken appearance with whatever I'm experiencing, well, that would be my homework. Is that correct? Is that what you're thinking of? Or are you saying that we should be doing something else?
No, I think, well, usually I would like you to take any point that hit home the most, actually. But then again, if there wasn't anything that, you can, you see, for instance, there may be something you're thinking, oh, that I could go deeper into, for instance. But if that didn't exist, then I would like you to reflect on how we are a slave, as Geshe Kelsang said it so beautifully, how to really recognize how we are under the control of this mind that perceives the self to be existent in a way which it doesn't, and which then gives rise to having so little freedom. I need this, I cannot do this, and so forth. So to have that introspection, to watch your own mind, and this you can do the whole day, basically. So how does this sense of self, how does this sense of I, when I feel hurt, what is we probably have encounters with other people. Hopefully you have an unpleasant encounter with someone tomorrow. You feel like hurt, injured, you feel insulted, for instance. What is the I that feels insulted? What is the I that is unhappy? To watch it. How do I perceive of myself? Is the I somewhere in the body or somewhere in the mind? Right? And just be like a scientist watching your own self. And could that really be the cause of all my troubles? That misperception. That's the homework I would like you to do. Yeah. All right. Any further questions? Yes, go ahead. The microphone. Oh, yeah, of course. Right. Could you pass on the microphone? Yeah. Thank you. Pardon? Last question? Okay, let's do the last one. Yeah.
I actually...
How nice, you wrote it down.
Yeah, because I don't have a good memory, I got to write it down. From the doodles that I've done, something that strikes me hard is your word that you said, are we a slave to our own I? So, being a slave, that means, are we creating our own prison?
Ooh.
And that means there is no real freedom.
Are we creating our own prison and there's no real freedom? Good question. I could even become a homework, but yeah, go ahead.
Then, by recognizing ultimate truth,
yes,
that is equivalent to real freedom, or not?
Right,
But
another good question. So by recognizing ultimate truth, is that a way to actually achieve that freedom? Yeah, okay.
That real or the ultimate truth of freedom. So, but we attend classes. On paper, on books, we know what is conventional truth and what is ultimate truth. We know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
We know ultimate truth conventionally. But how do we know that we have actually internalized ultimate truth?
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll repeat the question. If we are slaves to this non-existent self, through our self-centeredness, basically, right? Does that mean we don't have freedom and we are responsible for the absence of freedom? Have we created our own prison? Number one. Okay. Yes. So have we created our own prison? That's one question. I'm hesitant to answer it right away because I want you to figure out yourself, right? And then the second question is, if we realize the ultimate truth, if we recognize the ultimate truth, will we attain freedom?
What was the real freedom or the
real freedom, actual freedom?
In Buddhist terms.
Yeah. Will we attain freedom from a Buddhist point of view? Okay. All right. So first of all, it's probably difficult to agree for all of us we're not internally free. Some of us may feel freer than others, right? But are we slaves really to our own attachment? Because self-centeredness is an attachment to what? I and my happiness. I and my happiness. Exaggerating the importance, thus we perceive there to be a truly existent I and a truly existent my happiness. And that gives rise to exaggerating its importance. Exaggerating the importance of me and my happiness. Which then gives rise to holding attachment. I'm constantly holding on to my happiness and me. It's in every thought. I'm holding on to, how does this benefit me? How does this give rise to my happiness? Right? So we're slaves in that sense. And what else is? We're always a little bit worried. A little bit concerned. There's like worry ready to set in. If I don't get what I want. Right? We're really ready to worry. Does that make sense? Ready to worry. Ready to... Have you ever had a day when you didn't worry, you didn't feel uncomfortable? Like it was, everything was just from morning to evening, pure peace. No. Who remembers a day that way? Right? We don't, none of us remember such a day. Can't. Because of holding on to me and my happiness. Self-centeredness. We cannot. As long as we have this mind, peace cannot arise. So, to understand how the I really exists, understanding it's not there. It's like if your whole life you're worried there's a ghost in the closet. Every time you go to sleep, you worry it's inside. It's there. It's there. Okay, I take a sleeping pill, but still, when I wake up, I feel scared. All day long, I'm thinking, there's this thing in my closet. There's this thing in my closet. And one day you look and it's not there. What happens? It was never there. It's empty. Right? So similarly here, I'm constantly worrying about something, this I. I'm constantly trying to gratify it, protect it, seek for its success. What is success anyway? Success for this I. There seems to be a concrete success and a concrete I. The problem is, I have this thought, I had success, now I'm successful. But the next day, it doesn't feel that way any longer and I have to do it all over again. Or have a good reputation, my name was in the newspaper. And the next day I feel like I have to do more. It has to be in every newspaper and there's no end. And I cannot find a true good reputation. I cannot find a true gain or anything. But I'm constantly striving for it. So if I understand, if I understand there is no inherent reputation, there's no inherent success, there's no inherent I, and there's no inherent happiness. What is there to worry about? What is there to be afraid of? What is there to be sad about? And moreover, now I can focus on all sentient beings. I've got all the time in the world. I can focus all my love and compassion on others. I'm not preoccupied with I, me, and mine all the time. I've got the space of mind. Now I can truly be compassionate. And then compassion, when it arises, it's a state of mind where it's an emotion. There's a physiological response. What is it? Healthy heart rate, healthy heart, right? Healthy chemicals released in the body makes me feel even better. On top of the freedom I now have, I feel so good. That's why the Buddha said, you want to feel good? What are you doing? It's like taking poison the whole time, but hoping to feel better. Right? That's why the Buddha said it in the first place. I mean, that's why his holiness says, if you want to be selfish, at least wisely selfish. Right? I mean, we start off, we are selfish right now. We can't just shake it off. The problem is, the thing we want, we destroy it all the time, and instead create that which we don't want. It wouldn't be half as bad if we were wisely selfish. But we aren't. But to completely overcome the selfishness, that's true freedom. And we can truly love, we can truly have kindness and compassion for others and find that peace we've been looking for so long. Wouldn't that be nice? On that note. On that note. So let's leave it for tonight. I hope you're clear with your homework. Today, I'm sure, or tomorrow, this is the best day you're doing your homework. Then things are probably wearing off a little bit. But so I look forward to, seeing you again tomorrow for those who have time. And have a great night.
Thank you.
What prayer do you usually do? You don't do it? We do. Okay, let's not recite it. Let's meditate on it, the dedication for a moment. Do you have a prayer prepared? Chancho Samjo Rinpoche, we can do. Right, let's do the Chancho Samjo Rinpoche. You all know that, right? It's a beautiful prayer. But let's take a moment to make our dedication meaningful, to not just recite the words, but also to also think along the lines, to think, may this help us to, may whatever positive potential we've accumulated tonight help us to understand the true truth, and in that way find the freedom that we discussed before, and utilize the freedom in such a way that we generate great love, compassion, and bodhicitta, and eventually attain the enlightened state of a Buddha for the benefit of each and every sentient being. So with this in mind, let's recite the prayer. Chancho Samjo Rinpoche, Madhyamaka Prasangika, Kepanyam Panipayam, Kone Kondu Perasho.